Hey guys, my name's Tig, and this is the first and probably last Path of Exile video I'll ever make. And the only reason I'm making this video today is because I wanted to talk a little bit about how to make money in non-grindy ways. There's going to be a little bit of farming involved in any way that I describe making money, but I am not the type of person to grind one thing endlessly. And a lot of people have been asking me how I make my money otherwise, because I don't really flip, here and there. I'll flip an item or two. I don't craft a ton because I don't like sitting around in my hideout. And so that leads to the question: how do I mean, I'll show you a little bit. Here's my currency tab currently, and you can see that I've been able to gear out my characters pretty well. And so people ask me, how do I make my money? Well, there are a few basics that I'm not going to cover. You know, you're going to need a loot filter. You're going to need PoE trade. You're going to need some basic knowledge of the game. Not only your own build, but builds that are popular at the time. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about right now is going to be specific to Essence League, because I think the most important concept in how to make money is that you need to be able to recognize patterns quickly. You can't wait for a video like this to come out. You can't wait for your favorite streamer to start talking about the build. You just need to know, a lot of it is going to be your own personal motivation on picking up how to most efficiently make use of your resources. And resources include the currency that you have on hand, maps that you have on hand, things like Uber Lab offerings, series sets. Anything is a resource in this game because that's how the game is designed. So, I would say over the course of the league, I've probably made something like 400 exalts, maybe. Maybe more than that. I don't know. I don't know how much has gone into rolling maps and stuff like that, shaper sets, whatever. But that number should give you an idea of, I'm not talking about how to make multiple mirrors, like 72. I'm not going to be the guy sitting around buying up every mirror tier item. I just like very well geared characters and being able to do whatever I want. If I sit down right now, I can have a great crafting session off the top of my head without having to worry about breaking the bank. So anyway, let's get down to it. I think I can break down how I've made my currency into a few basic categories. So out of that 400, probably about 100, maybe a little bit less, maybe 60 or 70 has been pure currency drops slash random big drops. Like I got a Chevrons. I had a brass dome drop from Minotaur back when they were worth about 8 exalts. So stuff like that totals up somewhere between 60 and 100x. I don't know exactly. And there's really not much I can tell you about that, right? That's just playing the game a lot, grinding various things, and some luck. Not everybody's going to find a Chevrons over the course of a league. But so let's take that 100 out. So we've got 300 left over to play with. What did I do to get that? Well, probably a solid 50 exalts has come from 50 to 75 from mid-range rares like this. This is on the high end, so is this shield. These are both 35, 45 chaos items. They've sat around for a few days. They'll sell eventually. But 10 to 30 chaos items are my bread and butter at the start of a league. And you can sell a lot of stuff for that price range. Unfortunately, I don't have anything sitting around in my tabs right now, but you'll just have to take my word for it. The un-ID chaos recipe, I imagine for the amount that I play, the NID Chaos Recipe probably would have made me just as much, if not more, but it bores the hell out of me. And I didn't play this game, I didn't start playing this game to, sell items unidentified. That kills me. So this range right here is where your game knowledge is going to be most important. Um, right here, you can see crit casters, crit energy shield casters are super in vogue right now. So this is great for them. It's going to cover their dex and strength needs. It's going to cover their crit stats. You can craft percent ES on this. They can get some mana regen. I mean, it hits all the stats that a caster needs except for spell damage and critical strike chance. Um, but you know that again comes down to some luck, right? You need you need to be able to not only identify the rares correctly, but you need to have the knowledge to say like, oh, okay, this is more than 5 chaos, but maybe not 2 exalts, and then you got to price the items to move where public stash tabs will come in handy. So that was 75 exalts, let's say. So now we have 225 left. Another 25 maybe came from doing Vinctar squares. Maybe not even 25, maybe 20. Early in the week, Vinctar Square was basically guaranteed profit because even the cheapest Vinctar flask was breaking even on the cost of the map. And conversion flasks were huge profit, as was spell damage. So as long as you had a 50% chance of making more than 2 exalts, and a 50% chance of essentially breaking even or a small profit on the attack damage one, which is the concept that basically plays into making the rest of my money. Uh, I have never scammed anybody in the game. I've never exploited any bugs. I don't even follow bugs really. But the only way I can think about how to name this style of gameplay would be borderline exploitative. Borderline exploitative. What do I mean by that? You take advantage of any mechanic in the game that basically lets you ignore what you put into it, what currency you have put into it. So that's why Uber Lab is so popular, right? You pay 4 or 5 chaos for an offering. It's a small investment, and it is almost impossible not to get 4 or 5 chaos back from Uber Lab. But as I said, it's boring as hell. So is grinding Dried Lake. So is crafting. So is flipping currency. All of that shit bores the hell out of me. So instead, I like figuring out what parts of the normal gameplay, just random stuff that I do, allows me to get almost guaranteed profit out. So Vinctar Square was one of it, and this was like 20 exalts. Val Wins maps are another. I would say on average, if you run a Vol Wins in a map like this, that I just collect these corrupted maps whenever I come across one, you're going to find probably 2.5 6 links on average. And probably one of them will look something like this, where, it doesn't have great stats, but it's usable, and it'll sell for a little bit more than a divine. This one might not go for 25 at this point, maybe it'll go for 20 or whatever. But the point is, Val Wins, they sell for 15 to 20 chaos. This is one of the things where RNG is going to play more of a role, and you need a little bit more currency to get started. It takes a little bit more effort. It takes a little bit more time because of how difficult running a Val Wins map is when you have to wait for the Tempests. But it's another example where you are going extremely low risk. Compare this to running an Uber at Ziri set where you've invested 2 exalts instead of 15 to 20 chaos, and you have a chance of getting 5 chaos back with the vertex drop, and maybe a couple maps, maybe 2 or 3 tier 14 maps on average. So we've gone over Vinctar Square, we've gone over Val Wins, we've gone over rares, but by far the 2 most abusable mechanics in Atlas of Worlds specifically are selling excess maps, any of the Warbands maps, just random random extra maps, any of the tier 14s, tier 13s. I keep two tier 15s of the non-shaped types at any given point. So all of these down here, I would sell these if I was so inclined. I've made probably, I mean, my Atlas is at 126 out of 125, but I've made probably 50, probably another 50 to 75 exalts selling maps, and I've completely lost track out of the 300 where we are. I think we've got about 120 still to account for. Uh, yeah, 50 to 75, probably from selling excess maps. Last league, I ended with 200 red maps and 200 gorge, plateau, springs types layouts. Um, that just transferred over to standard, and I was like, what the hell am I doing with these now? They're just sitting on standard doing nothing, when I could have had, you know, I don't know how much that was worth, but a ridiculous amount of currency. uh, I'm not making that mistake this league. Unfortunately, map values have dropped compared to last league because of how easy maps are to sustain, but you can still make very good currency. You know, Overgrown Ruins compared to any other tier 15, I think these are still selling for about 20 chaos each because of the Chaos Warbands challenge. Core is selling for like 17 or something. I mean, compare that to, you can buy mazes, I think, for like 8 chaos. If you run 2 mazes, you will get the same amount of, or more experience, the same amount of currency, or sorry, more experience, more drops, more everything compared to running a core. Really, the only thing where you're running, losing out on is a chance at the Guardian maps, which, you know, that's their own risk reward. Starting to ramble a bit here, so I'd like to close out, but um, the last and most abused mechanic is this map right here. I have made a solid 30 to 35 exalts off of this, and that's not the biggest chunk of my currency, but that's because I don't want to grind it all day. For those of you who don't know, Scriptorium, the boss of Scriptorium is Shavron, and Shavron is the only boss in the game that can drop the Shavron's Wrappings divination card, which is this one, the Offering, which currently is selling for 42 chaos, but at the start of the league, they were going for 60 chaos plus, and basically GGG fucked up. They took Core Shavron and they put her in Scriptorium in a tier 13 map where she can be twinned, and they didn't adjust the drop rate of the card. This is the only example of a deterministically farmable card, divination card, for a huge item that I know of in the game. There's absolutely nothing else that can be farmed this smoothly. In my experience, if you rolled Scriptorium twinned, you get a card 1 in every 6 maps. Think about that. Every 50 tier 13 maps that you run, you get a Shavron's Wrappings as an extra bonus on top of any other loot in the map, any other map returns, your normal experience, your normal chaos drops, etc. You get an extra Shavron's Wrappings, about 6 exalts right now. So if I told you that at the end of every map, at the end of every tier 13 map you run, I'll just hand you 8 chaos, how would you feel about that? That's how abusable this mechanic is. And so, people ask me how I make my money. It is all about recognizing these patterns. I ran two or three Scriptorium maps at the start of the league, and I think I saw 2 of these cards drop, and it immediately struck me how ridiculous the drop rate must be, if it was as I suspect, and I later proved it to myself that that was correct. What is not borderline exploitative? Not borderline exploitative is anything that's not going to give you that guarantee, which if you don't have the currency base to absorb a loss, you're going to be, you know, I forget what the phrase is, but you're going to be spinning in circles. Not borderline exploitative. Putrid Cloister. Paying 70 chaos for basically the hope that you're gonna get 70 chaos back in divination cards. More than 70 chaos back. It's ridiculous. Uber at Ziri, already discussed. don't pay 2 exalts to try to hit the jackpot if you're that concerned about building a currency base. Um, Shaper. Shaper is awful right now. GGG made the items, the map as a whole, far too accessible. And so you are basically looking at having to hit the jackpot just like with Uber Atziri. What else is not? I think that's really it. You know, if you want to play in a varied manner, you need to find mechanics like this. That's the bottom line. You need to have something that drives you to say, hey, this is what I want to do for a little while. You don't have to do it endlessly, but you just have to say, this is what makes sense to me. But really, this is silly right here. This needs to be nerfed. I imagine it will be next league, because I'm telling you guys right now, you can go out and farm your own Chevron's wrappings. I don't know. This is my first video, like I said. I'm sure I rambled on too long, and I don't know if half of this made sense, but hopefully this helps some of you guys. If you do have other questions, I mean, there are other ways I made money. I can't think of them right now. And I just written myself a little outline of what to talk about. But if you do have anything, you feel free to contact me. Here's my here's my name, and have fun.